Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello, and welcome to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Brendan Labarre, and the Jets just beat the Dallas Stars 4-1 to have the best regular season start any team in the NHL has ever had. Now, they've gone 14-1. It's unbelievable. It's amazing, but I think what we need to know is Josh in the chat, Game Over Winnipeg, huge fan Josh, said, no, the shutout streak. Well, Connor Hellebuyck did indeed break the shutout streak for the Winnipeg Jets franchise today. He has had the longest. It was 191 minutes and 47 seconds. And I like how Josh, as a Leafs fan, took it upon himself to take this great victory that they had and find the only negative. Now, before we get into everything, before you start breaking down the game, Logan Stanley took the penalty, which kind of, not really, it wasn't a power play goal, but it kind of led to things. And on this show, we are nice to Logan, so we're going to have none of that negativity going into this one. But before we get into it, before we start breaking down the game, make sure that you check out the flagship show of the Game Over Network channel, which is Hyper Drive Hockey. It's all things hockey across various leagues in multiple countries. Wherever it is and wherever it is, Max, Daphne, and Kev have you covered for all your hockey news with a steady dose of fun and fan engagement. You can find Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or on the Hyperdrive Hockey page at thegameovernetwork.com. Josh says it was his fault I turned the game on and then Dallas Stars. Yeah, well, guys, there you have it. Josh is no longer allowed to watch Winnipeg games, even though they have a pretty good record when Josh watches, and they also have a pretty good record just overall this year. I was gonna say they might even be undefeated when Josh watches, but Josh is a Leafs fan, so you know he watched that one game in particular. So we get into this game. You know, the Winnipeg Jets are feeling pretty good coming off that Colorado win, except things were kind of, we weren't too sure how they're going to respond to things. Adam says, hi chat, and Brendan, hello Adam Firebear. Thank you for joining the stream. Keep commenting away. Graham said it could have been his fault too. He looked away and Dallas scores. Yeah, Graham, we're going to have to pin your eyes open like that episode of Tom and Jerry or the Robot Chicken that's a really obscure reference. Anyways, we get into this game and we're like, okay, how will the Jets respond after that third period against Colorado? In that period, they were kind of pelted. They were just kind of holding on to survive. They were just taking all these shots and hoping none squeaked through, and luckily none of them did. So we get into this game and we're like, okay, this is a very different team we're up against though. They're more built like the Winnipeg Jets and how they have more of a four-line team as opposed to the McKinnons and Rantanens of the world that are going to come and just tear you down by themselves. So we get into this game, and one notable thing is that the Adam Lowry line doesn't start. Now, Adam Lowry's usually the matchup line, and they're kind of playing the matchup, but it always feels like that line should just always start anyway because they really set the tone for this team. And as Adam Lowry kind of chugs along, he's so good at resetting thing, and he just is really good at establishing play. JFMOS on YouTube says, felt Halley's disappointment for that first and last Dallas goal. Yeah, it really sucked too because he lost his stick too, and it beats him 5-hole, and that's such a reactive thing. Just to when you don't have your stick, you kind of feel a little naked as a goalie. I feel I'm not a goalie, but I've heard that in some spheres, and you really just want to. You just feel bad for the guy, especially how close he was to kind of getting it done. So that first shift in the game, it felt like the Winnipeg Jets kind of started where they left off against Colorado. They were kind of not as good as they've been, not as good as you've come to expect the Winnipeg Jets. They were a little bit on the back foot, and that led to them taking the first penalty, Nino Niederreiter, for cross-checking. And you kind of feel like, okay, are the good times coming to an end? Are the Winnipeg Jets, are we kind of starting this game on the wrong note? But then, this has been a week. I've done this game. I've done all 4 games this week. And the refereeing has been such a constant all the way back to the Tampa game. And the referees put on a masterclass today in that first 10 minutes of just making stuff up. They go into that they get that Seguin penalty on the Stars power play that came from the Niederreiter cross check, and Seguin's just standing his ground. Sandberg kind of skates back over him, and the refs call it. And you're like, Well, okay, we will definitely take that. So it kind of makes the power play like just a 4-on-4 situation, and we're gonna call that a successful Winnipeg Jets kill. And but then the Winnipeg Jets failed to score on their 10-second power play, which you don't come to expect that from the team. Really tough when you only get 10 seconds to work. But anyways, then we go on. We have the game keep on going a little bit, and the Winnipeg Jets, the referees make up another call when Sam Steele trips Nikolai Ehlers. That one didn't feel like a trip. You could see how he might see it from far away, how it kind of looks like one. But was that really a trip? What is that kind of the standard we've kind of set for ourselves in for calls over the last few games? I don't think so. But the Jets went on the power play. They didn't score on that one either. But then, oh no, on the Ehlers one they did score. Sorry, my bad. My apologies. And the way they scored is that first unit went out there. They didn't do too much. They definitely looked good, which they always do these days. But then that second unit comes out. And with that second unit, they kind of have a different feel from that first unit. But they were kind of like cycling up, and they kind of wait for opportunities to get Iafallo and Nino Niederreiter in there, because those two just love picking up that garbage. And you really saw in this play, you had Perfetti and Pionk and Vladimir Nemestikov kind of cycling around, and those guys were just all moving. They were all filling in space, filling in gaps, making chaos. And then eventually it was like the stars aligned. And Nemestikov was able to get the puck over to Iafallo in front. If it wasn't going to him, it was going to Nino Niederreiter. They were both there. And he pops that first goal into the net. Fantastic way to start the game. But then they weren't done. That fourth line went back to work. And one of the things that I was going to kind of bring up is at the start of this game, Matt Dumba rocked Nikolai Ehlers. And Matt Dumba was all over this game tonight, and including on the Winnipeg Jets' second goal. On that second goal, we have Rasmus Kapari, who, what a game from this guy. This guy's really finding a niche in this Jets lineup as just a speedy fourth liner, killing penalties, taking faceoffs, really finding a way to be just a modern day great depth player. And so Matt Dumba has the puck, and Rasmus Kapari doesn't back off. The Winnipeg Jets are like, let's make this game as hard on the Dallas Stars defense as possible. He forechecks him, turns over the puck. They go on this little rush. Iafallo shoots it. Ottinger makes the initial save, but then Rasmus Kapari just pops it in. And this game was kind of sold to us, and you kind of felt like the Winnipeg Jets are the best defensive team in the NHL, also the best offensive team, but they let in the least amount of goals. Dallas Stars are tied for second with the Carolina Hurricanes, so you kind of felt this was going to be low scoring. But when that Kapari goal went in, you were thinking, is this going to be like an 80s style, long, like really high scoring game? And then it kind of settled down for a bit. And then it really turned it into an 80s style game when it was Perfetti and Bork was along the boards, and Perfetti goes up to him, and Bork hits him with like a reverse hit where you kind of throw your back into the guy. And Perfetti was not happy about that. He gets up, he looks for the call, and the next thing Perfetti did was go after Logan Stankoven and just cross-checks him absolutely into the boards. And I think this Perfetti play was the turning point in the game. Because sometimes when you take a play like that, or you do a play like that, especially from a young player, you're thinking like, that was undisciplined, that might cost us. And you're wondering how not only the team will respond, but how the coach will respond. And with this kind of first initial play, Adam Lowry wins the faceoff. They go on the rush. They're doing this really aggressive power kill kind of penalty kill. And then they get it out of the box. And I think one of my favorite things about this play is about that initial penalty too, was when there was that scrum after Perfetti kind of takes down Stankoven. Ehlers goes and like starts feeding Dumba a little bit, maybe some retribution for that hit. But then you get Perfetti coming out, and Perfetti starts skating to the bench. He's really trying to get there. They got the puck like over the red line. They chipped it in, and Scott Arniel will not let Perfetti on the bench. He puts him back out there. And it was really a vote of confidence for this Jets team, who's 14-1. This raw emotion comes out from one of the younger players, one of the guys who was scratched in the playoffs for a lot of times last year. And Scott Arniel wasn't the coach, but you think that he might have had somewhat of a say in that. So Perfetti goes out there, and then they keep playing. But that vote of confidence is just really showing the swagger the Winnipeg Jets are kind of playing right now. It's like, hey, that's okay. That's a mistake. That stuff will happen. And that was kind of the first period. It became a rougher period. And the Winnipeg Jets were really just taking to the Dallas Stars the whole way. I believe the shots were like 12-4 after the first period. The Jets were really feeling themselves. But then they come out in the second, and they have not taken their foot off the gas. We have a point shot which gets down to Nemestikov, who goes and does a wraparound, and he takes a second whack at it, and the puck goes in the net. And this is what I'm talking about with kind of defending your goalie around the net, because we want to kind of make a scenario where if that was the other team, they might think twice about whacking the Winnipeg Jets goaltender one more time. But Nemestikov, no problem, just takes a second whack, puts it in the net, and then he kind of gets like toppled by two guys. But Nemestikov was not having a bad time. He just went and scored the goal and cheered on with his friends. And then the Winnipeg Jets, they go out there, they get another power play, and the power play, kind of in contrast with the first goal, it feels like the second unit and first unit kind of play different styles. And there's actually a great thread of tweets by Jack Hahn on Twitter if you want to kind of look at a dissection of the Jets power play. But he's talking about how the Winnipeg Jets, they have kind of a 3-2 system on their second power play unit, but then with the second unit or the first unit, they turn it more into a 1-3-1, kind of a more traditional modern power play. And what really opened up Nikolai Ehlers on this goal was when Mark Scheifele, he's got the puck on his stick, he gets it down to Velarde, it comes back to Scheifele, pops open to a wide open Nikolai Ehlers in the slot. And it's because they had that movement from low to high, which pushed everyone down. Nikolai Ehlers is all by himself, and he's in the middle of their diamond formation penalty kill. He has such soft ice, he's able to take the one-timer and score the Jets' last goal of the game. And then the fans were they went absolutely nuts. They were chanting, what is it, US back up, which is just so fun. It really brings you back to that first Winnipeg Jets season when the Jets just had such a plethora of unique and fun chants, like silver medal to Ryan Miller and just like Jordan's better to Eric Stahl. And it was just really nice to see that Winnipeg was really feeling itself on a day where the Winnipeg Jets became the best starting team in the NHL, along with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who are going to the semis later today. And then with the third period, and in the third period, the physicality just kept coming. Miller and Harley both got coincidental minors. There was a time, and I absolutely loved when, I didn't love the penalty, but Kyle Connor kind of goes in for a break, and Matt Duchene bear hugs him, drags him to the ground, and then he gets the penalty. But Mark Scheifele looks at Matt Duchene. He goes up, and he kind of gives him a bear hug too, and he's like whispering in his ear. He was like, "You do not do that to Kyle Connor. Kyle Connor is our precious blonde boy, and he will not be taken like that." And with that little ASMR whisper, he was just taking full control of the game. Game Over Montreal is saying Jets are an absolute wagon. It sure feels that way. It's just what an absolute time to be alive for a Winnipeg Jets fan. For a Winnipeg sports fan, there's going to be a lot of people. The city of Winnipeg actually got some buses going straight from the Canada Life Center to I believe it's the Princess Auto Stadium where the Bombers play. And I hope nobody's driving home tonight. So, and then we kind of get into the later stages of the game. We have a huge PK where Appleton keeps Hellebuck's shutout streak alive, so he can become the leader of the longest shutout streak in Winnipeg Jets franchise history. I believe the Arizona Coyotes / Utah Hockey Club have a little bit of a longer one when they're in Arizona, so we are not counting that. And then there's a time where Mason Appleton was just able to knock the puck into the corner and keep it going so that Hellebuck could cross that milestone. And then, the Dallas Stars, they were doing a little bit of their own cheating. We've talked about the Winnipeg Jets kind of needing to learn how to cheat throughout the parts of the game. And then we see Matt Dumba going after Perfetti. Jamie Benn kind of puts his stick into Perfetti's back. And then Adam Lowry decides, you know what, that's enough of that, goes after Jamie Benn. They have a fight. And it's really just, you can really see this team coming together. And it's hard to not come together when you're on a 14-1 streak. But it just seems like every game there's just other challenges that kind of come up against the team, whether they're physical, whether it comes in the way they're playing. And it's just such a beautiful time to be a Jets fan, especially when there's these guys like Adam Lowry's been here. He was the Jets' second draft pick. Like everyone talks about Mark Scheifele. Adam Lowry was taken as the next person that draft in the third round. They didn't have a second that year. But just what a time to see all these characters that we've come to know. And through our ups and downs with our relationship with this team, just see how great this team is coming together to be. And this start, they're going to cool off at some point, but let's just ride this while we have it. Game Over Montreal says, make sure to smash that like button for Brendan and subscribe if you really appreciate the analysis. Yeah, let's go. What are you doing? Liking is free, subscribing is free, but as we kind of go and also make sure you're following everyone else on the Game Over network. Anyway, before we get into our second period, kind of where we talk about longer term stories with the Winnipeg Jets, let's talk about Game Over Network as an independent production, and it's focused on community, inclusion, and quality people. If you're interested in supporting the Game Over Network, such as Game Over Winnipeg, Montreal, etc., all the Canadian markets, we do have crowdfunding options available. In the description of this episode, you'll find a link to our Patreon page. And by the way, as you're looking for our Patreon page for our Discord, the like button's right there. You can just click it. It's free and easy. Subscribing is also free and easy. And then you can find our Patreon page. And we're working through an organization called LaRouque. And what LaRouque is, it's a crowdfunding program for companies originating in Quebec, which Game Over Network is. And we're aiming to raise $15,000. And if we hit that goal, we'll gain access to government grants, which will allow us to employ more people. So once again, if you are someone who is tired of seeing me on this show, hey, we get some donations going, we can employ more people. It'll be a great time for everybody. If you have any ideas of what you'd like to see as giveaways for the crowdfunding efforts, let us know in the comments on Twitter, Instagram, and our Discord server. Adam said, like and subscribe and shared. Thank you, Adam. Really appreciate it. Matt Wilkins says, as a Leaf fans, that 14-1 is amazing, but I'm glad my team got the one. Yeah, that is kind of a slight dig. And when I was on the crossover episode with Lauren of Game Over Toronto, she was kind of making sure that we knew that a little bit. And, it's always fun to have that one, but, there's a reason why we play twice this season. And I feel like, hopefully, the Winnipeg Jets will beat the Leafs in the next one. So let's get into our second period, where we're going to kind of talk about more long-term things. And this period, we're going to talk about 4 things that begin with 4. Number 1, the Winnipeg Jets roll 4 lines. The Winnipeg Jets this season, a part of the reason that made them so special is they have just a plethora of guys. You look at their scoring this year, it's not exactly balanced. Kyle Connor's at the top, but they have so many guys who have 10 or more points. They have 2 defensemen. They have like Adam Lowry, I'm pretty sure has 2 goals, 9 assists. And Adam Lowry is a guy who come before the season had 1 or 2 30-point seasons, which that offensive output, while that's not what his primary thing is, you kind of need that when you're a top 9 player to have more than 30 points. And just seeing him come out of the gate this year and have about 10 points when we're 15 games in, just incredible to see. And that kind of spread of scoring is present throughout the lineup. They have so many just tools and weapons and guys who everyone feels like a square peg in a square hole, and everyone has a role on this team. They have guys who like are just here to do the penalty kill, and that's their job, and they absolutely are great at and are great in it. And it's really showing in the Winnipeg special teams, where their power play is so prominent and their PK is also improving. Matt Wilkins says, if you're looking for a good giveaway for the Winnipeg Jets fans, perhaps a pothole patching kit. Great game today. Yeah, Winnipeg is well known for its potholes. If you're not from here, the weather being so drastic, it's a huge thing. It's brutal. Yeah, so just that balanced roster, that balanced attack. You look at the Dallas Stars and the way their rosters build up, you can kind of see that with the Winnipeg Jets, and we're going to kind of talk about more about that later in our third period. The next thing on the theme of 4s is 4 checks. The Winnipeg Jets this year are so good at attacking on the 4-check. They're so good at making the opposing team's defense have a hard night. Matt Dumba was having a really tough time tonight, and you really saw it in that second goal. This is something we've been talking about most games, is a lot of their offense is coming from forcing the Winnipeg Jets defense or the opposing team's defense to make mistakes. Matt Dumba had that big turnover. You had last game against Colorado, they had the one goal they scored is because they went and they attacked Josh Manson, and he just gave him the puck. They are so good at attacking guys on the rush, and it's coming from every single line. There's not a heavy forecheck line. It's Perfetti's doing it, Nino Niederreiter is doing it, and along with that forecheck, their back pressure is so good as well too. When you see this team defending on the rush, it's either a forward, it's usually the left winger. I think that's a system thing. It's like Nino or Kyle Connor or Nikolai Ehlers who's coming back through to help the defenseman. And that's giving the defenseman the option of if they want to make a push, if they want to pressure the puck carrier, they can just go and make that play because they know that forward's coming back who'll be able to come through kind of the seam area and be able to take that defenseman's spot for him. And it's so nice to see that just that kind of group of five mentality. When you have this balanced attack, you have options and you have kind of these layers of not just offense, but also defense as well. And then another thing, sticking on the theme of fours, they were making this Winnipeg Jets team seems to be so good at a 4-foot pass. There's like a lot of teams when they were playing the Seattle Kraken were kind of eating them alive because they'd make these long stretch passes. And the Winnipeg Jets kind of tried to do that against Colorado. It worked for kind of a little bit, but then they went away from it. But when the Winnipeg Jets are at their best, and you really saw it in the last Utah game, the Winnipeg Jets are making 4-foot passes. They're making the opponent pivot. They're making the opponent have to choose and think about things. And when the puck is moving from guy to guy to guy, you're having to make so many micro decisions. Am I going to cover this guy? Am I still on this guy? It really takes advantage, especially of teams who play man-to-man. And then you can kind of see with some zone teams that's working as well. And where they're really good at this is in the soft area of the ice, like on the top of the offensive zone, kind of at the blue line. And they're doing so many like swapping plays, like guys are making curves and they're curling and they're giving and going. And it's kind of like they're playing basketball and how they're outside of the 3-point key and they're just rotating and moving and causing confusion and causing chaos, which ultimately leads to chances. Because when you're in a chaotic kind of mind frame like that, when you're in a chaotic zone, that's when turnovers happen. That's when confusion happens. That's when losses of coverage happen. And that's when things like, was there any goals today that kind of resulted from that? But the Ehlers play was kind of like they're moving around. The first play, Iafallo, how is he open? How are both of them so open from the net? It's that movement, and it's a lot of it comes from these 4-foot passes. They're so good at it on the breakout. There was a play this game where Mason Appleton, you saw him, he was looking out. He had a forecheck on him too. And instead of just chipping it out and off the glass, he's passing it 4 feet back to his defenseman who made a quick pass out to another guy. And they just went and they kept on going in this 4-foot, these really just smart decisions. It's a whole unit thing. It's everyone on the ice, all 5 players are coming together and making these small plays so that they can keep the puck and they can progress up the ice together. And it was something they did so well in the first few games of the season. Then it seemed like they were trying to adjust to like a longer stretch pass system. And then they kind of went back to it. It seems like the Winnipeg Jets are trying to learn from their mistakes. They're learning from other teams and they're learning from what other teams throw at them. Where you saw that Seattle game where they were able to attack them on the rush and they saw that was a flaw in their plan. And I don't think they would have won against Colorado in that same game if they didn't play the Seattle Kraken first and they didn't learn like, okay, we have to learn how to play on the rush, because when they were able to defend the rush, which is also something they were really struggled with in the playoffs, they were able to like take those lessons from the Seattle game and to apply them to a better team like the Colorado Avalanche. Matt Wilkins says, when you're up against a team that's good at protecting their own blue line like Dallas, stretch passes become low percentage. The quick, short ones make the Jets lethal on entries. Yeah, and that's absolutely what we saw today. Thank you, Matt. Just those little passes that were just exposing the Dallas Stars and making them pivot and making them commit to other people. And there was so many gives and goes, and it was so nice to see. All right, our last fourth thing is just 14-1. We just got to appreciate how great of a start this has been for the Winnipeg Jets. They've come into this season, and my mom's upstairs, okay? She's a season ticket holder. And before the first game, she was telling me, she's like, this is so nice because before that Chicago game, it felt like this team, there was not much hype around it. It was kind of stale because if you look at this team compared to the team that started last year, what's the difference? There really isn't any. The only difference is some guys kind of found their roles a little bit more. Nino Niederreiter's been glued to Adam Lowry since last November. And you really don't have anyone new coming in besides you've lost a couple of guys on defense and Colin Miller has kind of been added. And then with that, it's like has this team become stale? Are they? And this team isn't young. They're growing fast. Like they're on the clock right now with the Hellebuck and Scheifele contracts. But the way they've kind of come together and kind of defied their not aging curve, but defy these like expectations of they've come in, they didn't get the job done last year, but they can come out here and have this amazing start is just such a testament to like the coaching staff that came in and kind of the team. And with the first few games too, like it wasn't just the Connor Hellebuck show, which we've become so accustomed to seeing. And speaking of Connor Hellebuck, just again, 191 minutes and 47 seconds of shutout hockey. We almost went 3 games in a row without seeing a goal go in. That's incredible. And Connor Hellebuck, we've become so accustomed to this guy. He has a little bit of a rough game against the Tampa Bay Lightning where he lets in like 4 goals. And he comes out this whole week and he says, I took that personally. I'm not going to let that happen again. And it's something that you just love to see. And he's such a competitor. And this team, you hear them talk about themselves. Kyle Connor the other day, there is such a belief in this locker room that they can win, that they can do the thing. I don't know if I'm going to say this year, that they can win the SC, not the Yeti, but and hopefully they prove me wrong because I think they need a little bit more top end talent to do it. But if they can do it being this 4-line team, which we haven't seen since Vegas, and Vegas had like an Eichel and a Stone and a Pietrangelo, and they're just a different dog. And hopefully that they can kind of defy this like top end talent that kind of win the championship, and that they can kind of go out there and do the thing. So anyway, before we kind of get into the overtime period, the period where I can talk about just whatever I want, let me tell you about the Game On Show. And the Game On Show is a daily news segment. It's about 10 minutes or so, and it's by our guy Graham from Game Over Edmonton. And it's just that, if you want to have your little, it's just a little snack about what's going on in the hockey world, Graham has you covered. You can find that at the Game Over Network YouTube channel, the main one. It's also on our website at thegameovernetwork.com. So make sure you're checking out that show. It's so nice to just have that little bite-sized show every day to kind of tell you what's going on in the hockey world. And we also have shows like Game Over Winnipeg, Game On Winnipeg, which will be like a pre-game show every week. We're just kind of revamping that. So stay on the lookout on Game Over Winnipeg's channel for the Game On Show. That'll be returning sometime soon. Speaking of the Game Over Winnipeg channel, make sure you're liking and subscribing to this video. It's a free and easy way to support the channel. It really helps us out and really helps us kind of grow as a network. So let's go to the third period. And I just kind of want to talk about kind of roster construction. And you look at the 2 teams they've played this week over the past few days here. And you look at Dallas Stars and you look at the Colorado Avalanche. These were kind of the 2 teams that the Jets were fighting for first in the Central last year. And they are 2 completely different type of roster constructions. And you can definitely see what type the Winnipeg Jets struggle with a little bit more. They really struggle with that top end talent, just that overarching like dominance that a guy like Nathan MacKinnon can have. And coming to this game, one thing I was really looking for against the Dallas Stars was, okay, the third line of Adam Lowry, Nino Niederreiter, and Mason Appleton, would that line be kind of not like counterbalance, but when you have a third line of Stankoven, Wyatt Johnston, and Jamie Benn, just a more scoring line, a line that's out there to do more than just nullify the opposing team's offense, will that 3-line scoring system kind of overpower the Winnipeg Jets? And the answer seemed to be no this time. But you can kind of see with that longer range, that like more spread out kind of roster construction, that they don't seem to have a problem with those teams. But what they do seem to have a problem with is the top end guys, the Nathan MacKinnons, the Cale Makars, the guys who can just dominate you with skill. Because there were some times, especially in that third period with Colorado, where there was just some like Harlem Globetrotter things going on, just passing around and having just an easy time kind of cutting through the Jets defense. And maybe that was just a 1-period thing because they did control a lot of that game. But the fact that they could just turn that on, and I know that happens to a lot of teams, so that's something where they just did that to you for 4 games in the Winnipeg series against Colorado. And you kind of have to think to yourself, like, I wouldn't make a trade right now, and there's no one available, but can the Winnipeg Jets find a way? Maybe they package a guy like just a bigger piece, like a bigger young player that kind of shoveled day off, has never been willing to trade, and kind of really solve this second line center issue by going out and getting a big target. And they've gone out and gotten big guys before, like Paul Stastny and Kevin Hayes. They've been trading the first round pick for what seems like ever. But I think the overarching storyline of this team is they don't have that dominant 100 point, 60 goal guy that can just kind of take you to the next level, that puts the fear of death in you when he's on the ice. Like when you're up against Colorado, every time Nathan MacKinnon touched the puck, you were scared for your life. And it was just a wild ride. And that's what it felt like again on this Thursday when Nathan MacKinnon touched it. And you were just kind of like, okay, is this when the dam's going to break? And that's what having a true game changer is like. Now, maybe, just maybe, they don't need that because they do have the best goaltender in the world in Connor Hellebuyck. And you saw what Connor Hellebuyck was able to do to Nathan MacKinnon and that team, because ultimately Connor Hellebuyck is going to be playing 60 minutes of each and every game. And that's such a big advantage because hockey's not basketball. In basketball, your best players play most of the game. Like when the Raptors won the championship, Kawhi Leonard was playing more than 90% of the game. While in hockey, you have more of guys like Nathan MacKinnon. He's only going to play about a third, maybe 25 minutes if they're really pushing him, which is not optimal. But with having your best player be the best goaltender on planet Earth, and I'll say that each and every single time, is that enough of an advantage to get you to the final, to get you to the promised land? Because he is just a guy, and he is so committed. And is that talent in net enough to overtake not having the best skaters? And we've seen goalies go on long runs and be able to take over, just go and win the thing without and they've gone on to win the thing with just elite goaltending. But when you kind of see that, you also see like with the LA Kings, which I think is the prominent example, Jonathan Quick would just be able to go on runs where he was the best goaltender in the world for 2 months, but he still had the guys like Drew Doughty and Anze Kopitar to kind of complement him too. We got Matt Wilkins again. Thank you for commenting so much, Matt Wilkins. By the way, here at Game Over Winnipeg, please, it's your show as much as my show. Please come in here and say things. Matt Wilkins says, it's not a slight against the Jets, but I think Winnipeg is on a lot of no trade lists, making it hard to acquire top guns at the deadline. I would agree with that, but I think you look at Vegas, okay? And this is like an outlandish comparison. Vegas went out and got Jack Eichel, and Jack Eichel has been my example since Jack Eichel was traded. You are not allowed to have a no trade clause in your RFA years. So when a guy like Jack Eichel is available, you need to put every asset you have at your disposal into getting a guy like Jack Eichel, because Jack Eichel did not have a no trade clause at the time. And I think it's absolutely valid to say, hey, the Winnipeg Jets are on your no trade list, you're just not going to get them. And I think that's valid. But when you see guys with these, who are in their RFA years getting traded, the guys that anyone would want on their team, and they're young and they want out, that's when the Winnipeg Jets need to strike. And there's usually one of those guys, usually never, but like once every 3 years, one of these guys kind of squeak loose. Or can they go out and get a guy who can grow into that? The Winnipeg Jets pro scouting has been so good lately, especially at finding guys who fulfill certain niches and holes in their lineup. When they needed a guy for the power play who would win faceoffs left-handed and be able to take that shot that Nikolai Ehlers did today, they got Sean Monahan. He was so good in that niche role. When they needed to get a guy, again, on the power play who was good from the net, who had those little hands, who could be on the right wing, they got Gabe Vilardi, and he's been so good in that role. Colin Miller's been a revelation on the back end for that third pair defensive slot. So can you find a guy like when Vegas was so good at this, when they were like, okay, we need a centerman who can do this and this and this and this, they'd go out and get guys like Chandler Stevenson, who just turned his career and just amped up because he was able to just use his skills perfectly in his role. And he was so good at that niche role, and he kind of grew into this player because of that pro scouting that Vegas was able to do. a guy like William Karlsson who's able to go into that and do that? Can they find that next guy who maybe he's like 25, 24, 26-ish, and can they just grow him into that role? Or maybe he's already here and there's just some prospect here that they can grow into that, but they haven't been able to do that over the last 10 years. All right, we are about to go into the overtime period. The overtime period is where you can ask me whatever you want. You can ask me any question. It can be related to the Jets. It can be not related to the Jets. So let's start typing our questions in while I tell you about the Game Over merch. And what better way to support something like our show than to support it by rocking it as clothing? Look at this hoodie. It's fantastic. If you want to look at one of these things, we got the hoodie. We have it in blue also. I chose the black one because I have so many Jets hoodies that are just navy. We have the mugs. I got like 5 of these mugs on the way. No joke. And if you want to check these out, we have the QR code here. But the apparel line's dropped and we have multiple unique designs. Whether you feel the nostalgic pull of our skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, or you want to wear your love for our goalies proudly with our live or die by the goalie design, or you just need another coffee mug to get you through the winter, we've got you covered. It was designed by Brady Chalice of Game Over Winnipeg. And please use the QR code on the stream now to take a look through our stuff. And we have some, like, it's not even just clothing. We got I think we got mouse pads. I think we got like a dog handkerchief, which I gotta get my dog. And yeah, so use the QR code on the screen, look through our apparel store, help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while repping your community. It's like Jess Bell and Rogers here, guys. Let's kind of take it back, put it back in the hands of the everyman. So I'm going to leave the QR code up here. We'll see if we have any questions. If not, we'll wrap the show. The Bombers are starting in like 9 minutes. That's a big thing. Huge. One of the Blue Bombers going to, like, if they win today, they'll go to the like 5th Grey Cup final in a row. Bombers, Argos, Grey Cup. You gotta tell you what, Matt Wilkins, I'm not the biggest CFL guy, but hopefully that'd be fun. It'd be nice to have that kind of game come around again that they had. Oh my gosh, was it 2 years ago? Well, yeah, because I think it was Montreal last year. I forget. Again, I am not a huge CFL guy, Bombers guy. I got the jersey up here, which is very nice. It was very nice aesthetic for the show today. But yeah, it would be lovely to have the Toronto Bombers rematch in the final there again. Yeah, I feel like at this point I watch one Bombers game a year, and it's the Grey Cup. And you know what? I'm okay with that. That sounds pretty good. It's just growing up, I was like, the Bombers were so brutal. I just couldn't get into it. And then like fantasy football got me into the NFL a little bit more. All right, and we got Adam. How many games do you want to see Hellebuyck play, and your thoughts on Comrie as a backup? I think I called Comrie coming back as a backup about last February. You could see Brossoit kind of playing him out of Brossoit kind of like playing out of that backup role as the season went on, and he was like, okay, he's definitely leaving at the end of the year. He's going to get a raise, and he did go to Chicago and get that raise, which that's awesome. But it's someone where they got him back because they know the person. They know where he kind of fits in, and I actually thought he was going to be more of a mentor role down in the AHL. And with how many games I want to see Eric Comrie, like Hellebuyck / Eric Comrie play, I'd love to see Hellebuyck at about 55 and then Comrie with 27. And you know he has that trust of that of the coaching staff to go in and play some games. And I think with kind of the streak that they've been on, they've been playing Hellebuyck a little bit more to kind of like keep it going. But I think Comrie's played like 3 out of 15. That's about 20%. 20%. It's about 64 and 16, I believe. So you kind of want to see Comrie playing another game a week, another game every 2 weeks, just to kind of push up that number for him. Because I think 55, 27, especially with the cushion you've gotten from the start, is very doable because you want him rested. And especially as Hellebuyck gets older here, Hellebuyck is about 31, I believe. The 93. Yeah, 31. So, yeah. 93 or 9? Yeah. So you want to see him kind of get more rest on the stretch, especially as, you know, he's not in his 20s anymore. He's in the dreaded 30s, especially as an athlete, especially as a goaltender where, like, you're moving a little bit more. But he's always been more of a guy who just kind of lets the puck hit him. Hopefully it's like, again, I guess just to answer your question, 55 for Hellebuyck, 27 for Comrie. get those kind of numbers down just so that he's rested for the playoffs. And maybe they're just kind of having him start the season, get him into this like Vezina form he's kind of putting on right now, and then kind of getting him the rest a little bit more later on and throughout when the schedule kind of gets ramps up again. And I think when they were playing they just came off a thing of like 10 games in 20 days. You think that you might have seen a little bit more Eric Comrie out of that, but I'm not in the room. Hopefully Connor Hellebuyck is kind of given less control of how much he starts, because I think that's been an issue in the past few years as well. All right. All right, and I think that's it. Unless we get a question for the end here, I'm going to wrap up the show. This has been Game Over Winnipeg. Make sure you're like and subscribed. If you're on the podcast app, please rate us 5 stars. Again, it really helps. But if you're on YouTube, just liking, subscribing, it really helps us as well. Make sure that you are tuned in for the next show. The next show will be a little earlier because the New York Rangers are hosting the Winnipeg Jets on Tuesday at 6 o'clock. So the show will be about 8:45. Ty will be back for you guys. And so if you're a little sick of me, Ty's gonna be back for the next one. Oh, and we got one more question back to the lobby for you. That's my buddy Josh. Even though the Jets are firing on all cylinders right now, what do you think they can do to elevate their game in March and April when other teams start doing well? I think it's just about we need to see them struggle a little bit first. We need to see what ails them. And we thought we kind of got that answer a little bit earlier in the season, or we thought we might have gotten that answer against Colorado, but you really got to see what this team stinks at before you can be like, okay, they got to do a little bit better in this. And I think last year, it was so evident that they were a bad team at scoring goals. And you look at them this year and it's that's not a problem right now. They're first in the league in scoring goals, and they're also first in the league at goals against. One thing that I came into the season thinking is they need to get faster. They're not a fast team. But this was the first game where I was are the Jets, did they play fast? Are those 4-foot passes I talked about earlier kind of making them play like a fast team with the puck? They're moving up the ice together as a unit. And maybe that's the solution, is maybe they're not the fastest on foot, but they have those kind of just that smart intelligence that can make them a fast team, because the puck is always going to go faster than the players. But I think one thing, and I think another thing they've been doing more too, is they've been playing so physical. This team in the last game have been cheating their butts off. They've been playing so physical. They've been playing a little dirty, and we kind of love to see that, because that's what gets results in March and April. So hopefully that kind of gets the team going. My dog is barking his head off right now. My dog's name is James Bond, by the way. Hopefully we kind of get our answers throughout the way with this team. But until now, it's let's let the good times go. All right. Adam says, you're fantastic. Oh, thanks, Adam. I really appreciate your comments. You've kind of when you guys are commenting, it makes the stream, it's our show. It makes the stream a lot easier for me, not going to lie. And hopefully it makes it a little bit more enjoyable for you. Yeah. We're going to answer Love LB. Yeah. All right. So once again, I've been Brendan Labarre. This is Game Over Winnipeg. The Bombers are about to start in 2 minutes. Hopefully they win the game and go on to the Grey Cup for the 5th year in a row. My dog's going, and I am too. Have a great night, Winnipeg.